Milo, is that you?
There, I think I got it. All right, so this is a show about paints and glues. And we were talking on our, this is on our Monday Free channel. And we were talking on the Wednesday night chat, which is available to Patreon members. And I'm going to turn my camera off because nobody wants to see me. We turn off our cameras because I'm ugly. And tonight I'm wearing my Philadelphia Flyers jersey.
Yeah, but do you have pants on?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I do. And I'm trying to decide, Ralph, who I should put on the back of my jersey. And I think I'm slowly closing in on Schultzy. I think I can't. Dave Schultz. Dave the Hammer Schultz of the fabulous Broad Street Bullies. The Flyers from the 70s. I guess it was primarily the 70s, wasn't it, the Broad Street Bullies?
Something like that.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Well, it's going to be paints and glues, but Roger Coleman is here, and he wants to be brought up to date about all things with the NHL.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so we're going to go through the NHL decade by decade, and each decade will be a show on its own. And we thought tonight we'd start with the 70s and the Broad Street Bullies.
Well, the 70s would have been when I was a hockey fan.
What's that?
I was kind of a hockey fan in the 70s.
Were you kind of a? How can you be kind of a hockey fan?
I never went to a game or anything. I kind of lived far away from where the action was, but outside of New York, so like the Islanders and the Rangers and I don't know. But I remember those days of like the hockey mask with the stitches, like just the plastic thing with the stitches on it, and there were no mouth guards, there were no helmets. It was just bloody out there. You know?
Guys out there with their hair flowing in the wind.
Yeah, and they're missing all their teeth, but there's fights at every game. Yeah, it was pretty exciting.
And I bet you don't even know that we actually have a professional hockey player in our midst.
Really?
Marcus?
No.
Yes, sir.
Not Marcus. No. Not even close. Nice guess, though. Actually, it was a really bad guess.
Really bad.
Really bad. No. Our very own Ralph Renzetti was played for the Toronto. How many? You played one game or two games for the Toronto Toros?
No. I sat on the bench for one game.
Well, yeah, but still, you had the uniform and the jersey and the whole bit. And who is the most famous player on the Toronto Toros when you sat on the bench?
I'll tell you, end of the 70s and most of the 80s, I don't remember a thing.
Okay,
it's gone that way.
Let's say Frank Mahovlich. No, he never played. He never played. Paul Henderson, I think, played for the Toronto Toros. So, anyways, Roger, there was a league called the WHA, which was the World Hockey Association, which is where Wayne Gretzky came from. The Edmonton Oilers were part of that league. There was a team called the Toronto Toros, and our very own Ralph Renzetti, the Mudfather. He wasn't really necessarily known as the Mudfather back then. Was actually sat and played. I say he played for the Toronto Toros, one game for the Toronto Toros.
Well, if they paid you, it makes you a pro, right?
Yeah.
Whether you played or not, right?
And you got to wear the whole uniform and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
So I mean, as far as I'm concerned, he's a professional hockey player. Retired. You're not putting the blades back on, are you, Ralph?
Are you kidding me? with my back the way it is and my knees, there's no way.
Okay.
Not even rollerblades.
Yeah. Rollerblades are dangerous to me. So no, it was not Marcus. So that's our hockey lesson for today. So I think I think we've all decided that on the back of my Philadelphia Flyers shirt, I'm going to put number 8, Dave the Hammer Schultz.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. But Roger.
Yes, sir.
Who's your favorite hockey team now?
I can't really say that I have one.
But you live in Nashville.
And it seems utterly absurd that Nashville has a hockey team, but
it does. I agree.
So I don't. I
also have a soccer team too,
which is even more absurd.
Yes.
But I'm a transplant, so I don't. I don't have any. Real. I'm not a representative of Nashville or anything, so I can't speak to Nashville.
Yeah, but how long have you lived in Nashville?
Oh God, 20-something years.
Yeah, so plenty of time to soak in the atmosphere.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And there was that stretch when you were a roadie for Garth Brooks.
Yeah.
And you regularly visited with Johnny Cash before he passed away.
Yeah, go hang out at the Amqui station that he had up there, and
yeah, there you go. Exactly. So it's the Nashville.
I'm lying, of course, but yeah.
Yeah, your team is the Nashville Predators.
Okay, if you say so.
And Marcus, your team?
I guess it would have to be the Carolina Hurricanes, but I'm not a hockey fan either. I think you're either really a hockey fan and intensely into it, or you just don't know anything about it. There's kind of no in between, I don't think.
I think you might be right about that, actually. I've never really thought about that, but I think you could be right. I think you're either a hockey fan or you really don't care. Because really, in the lower 48, well, in all 50 states of the United States, but in the lower 48, it's almost a minor league. Like, it doesn't have the same status as Major League Baseball or football.
Right.
Or
basketball.
Or even college football. College football is a bigger deal in the States than hockey is. But
well, I think it's regional. When I lived in Boston, the Bruins were a really big deal.
Well, yeah. Like if you're from the Northeast, that's where the dyed in the wool.
Original six.
Original six. The original six are the Toronto Maple Leafs, your Montreal Canadiens, your Chicago Blackhawks, your Detroit Red Wings, and the Boston Bruins and the New York Rangers.
Right.
The real hard question is who's the original 12? That's the one that really stumps everybody. All right, that's enough of that. Because what we're really here about is, so this podcast was generated because we were all talking on the Wednesday night chat, and I started asking Ralph questions about glue, and all of a sudden the conversation got very interesting, and I said, everybody stop talking. We should talk about this and record it for the podcast, because I found it to get more and more interesting. Because I was asking Ralph, because I showed Ralph my bottle of Gorilla Super Glue, and he says, don't use that. And I said, why not? And he said, because your models will fall apart in a year. So does that go for all super glue?
CA glue generally is a mechanical bond. So it's meant for two dissimilar products that you want to put together. You have to roughen the surface so that there's something for it to bind. And the CA glue will hold it for a while and eventually will let go because it dries out.
Did anybody else know that?
I did.
Did you?
Yeah, I think I've built things before that they seem like they get brittle and the edges, like the wall sections, come apart in time. And I guess that's why, if I'd used that kind of glue.
Now, that said, carpenters will use it as a spot glue for holding things in place while other glues take over, like carpenter's glue. They'll also use it, put a piece of tape on both surfaces and put the glue on one piece of tape and wet the other surface and put the two together. And of course, CA glue bonds best on moist things. And when you want to take it apart, the tape peels off. The glue sticks together, but the tape peels off, which is a good way to do it because you save the surface.
So how did you learn all this stuff, Ralph?
Trial and error, watching carpenters work, all that kind of stuff. And in school, I took cabinet making, and now it was CA glue was just starting. CA glue was originally designed for sealing surgical wounds in Vietnam. So I have a specific bottle on my desk. So every time I cut myself with my number 11 blade, super glue it closed.
I like how he says every time.
Every time. That's right.
Not like once in a while when I do it. Every time when I cut myself with my.
Well, my dad was a machinist, and every time he cut himself at work, he did the same thing. Had a little bottle of super glue there and patched it up.
Works great.
It does. Doesn't stop the bleeding completely, but
yeah. And then I'd also add that CA glue has a shelf life on it once you open it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, why is that?
Because of the air that hits it.
Moisture in the air.
Yeah.
All right.
So the best way to store it is in a Ziploc bag in a fridge.
Well, I didn't know that. I've heard about putting it in the fridge. I never heard about putting it in a zip. That was my point last night when we started having the conversation. There is so many interesting things that you guys started to say. I thought, man, we got to record this as a podcast and let the world hear about it, because I'd never even heard about that. That's the first I've ever heard about. Put it in a Ziploc bag and put it in the fridge. I knew about putting it in the fridge. The Ziploc bag is genius.
Lionel, you live a sheltered life.
I do.
I know.
Exactly.
Now, isn't it true though that there are some, when you're, like you were saying, like when you want to put together two really dissimilar materials, like, I don't know, metal to paper or wood or something, like CA is like kind of your only alternative?
You can use epoxy.
Okay.
But you run into the same problem. It eventually will dry out from one of the surfaces and let go.
And so why not canopy glue, which is kind of my go-to glue, except for plastic
canopy
bottles.
glue is a version of Carpenter's white glue.
Mm-hmm.
It's what they call a PVA. Don't ask me, polyvinyl something.
And so the glue you do use, Ralph, you showed me last night. Was it the one with the yellow top, the Tamiya cement?
No, although I do have the yellow top. That's for when my grandson comes. That's not, as they call it, it's not as hot as the green lid or the green label. There's a second green that has more MEK in it for very quick. The liquid glues, cements for plastic they literally weld the plastic together.
So that's what we're talking about here is plastic cement.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm looking at a local hobby shop that Ralph and I know about called Sunward Hobbies. I went to their website page about glues. So right now I'm looking at the Tamiya extra thin cement. It says Tamiya extra thin model cement is used to glue together plastic model kits that use polystyrene. And then they have another one that's Tamiya extra thin cement quick setting.
Quick set. That's the green one. They're both green. One is a lime green as opposed to the mint green of the other one.
So how long would the quick setting, like how is it kind of like super glue that it kind of glues things together pretty fast?
It does. It's like once you put it together and you hold it in position for 5-10 seconds, it's almost as quick as CA glue, but because it's melted the plastic together, if you had to pull it apart, you could. With CA glue, you can't.
Okay. Oh, all right. Okay. So, and then I see there's like a Tamiya cement that's glue parts together. Is that kind of like just a kind of an all-round one it's got a white top on it?
White top, that's the original.
That's the original.
Really thick, and it has a real thick brush in it. So the green ones have a very thin brush in it so that you could target small areas.
Okay. And so your go-to is what? The extra thin quick setting or just the extra thin?
Just the extra thin.
And how long would you have to hold parts together with it? Like maybe 20 seconds?
Less than that.
Okay. So really, either one of those is good. So the one has a dark green top and the other one has like a lime green top.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm going to order from those guys. And what is
so how does that come? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, what is the yellow one?
It's a thicker glue, but it's not as thick as the white top glue.
And it has the fine brush in it too, I think.
Yeah. And then I would also add with the extra thin, it's very watery. So
Yeah, very. It is like water.
Yeah, so use it sparingly because you can easily get fingerprint marks on your model while you're building. So.
How do you know that, David?
I fudged a couple of models in the past and had to go and wait for them to dry and then sand them down smooth and restripe panel lines on airplanes, and it's a whole mess.
So that's David Lund's voice. So what glue do you use? What's your primary go-to, David?
Primary go-to is the extra thin from Tamiya. I also use that orange cap cement. And then for CA glue, I use the Bob Smith Industries. I've tried other ones, but I just gravitate towards the Bob Smith brand.
The thing is, Bob Smith has about a dozen different types.
Oh, I'm sorry. The purple cap, the medium.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the question we really got to investigate is who exactly is Bob Smith?
Well, he's your uncle, isn't he?
I've always said, I've been buying Bob Smith CA glue for 1,000 years, and I'm always thinking, who the hell is Bob Smith? And it's like so popular and so readily available.
Yeah, really nice people too.
Are they?
Yeah.
How would you know?
Like I said, back when I worked in the hobby shop, that's what we carried, and I've placed orders over the phone with them. They're really nice people.
Yep.
They know everything that you could ever want to know about adhesives from what I've experienced with them. Yeah, they're very well versed in what they sell, which is pretty awesome.
So what's your
one thing?
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
One thing that they do provide that others, I haven't seen it by any other company, is an uncure debonder. It's a green label. So you know how you got your finger stuck to your eyelid there a while back?
Yeah.
You could have used this debonder, and it would have made it easier to get your finger away from your eyelid.
Right. I've seen that. I think I've had that for a while. I've used that a few times. I got to be honest with you. I think pretty much everything I ever glued together, I used CA glue. So I guess I've been, which that would explain some things, because I have gone back to some models and gone, oh, did I not glue that properly or something? Some parts of it.
Just be careful with the debonder because it'll ruin paint jobs.
It goes everywhere too.
So, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So, Marcus, what's your go-to glue?
Well, I have always used, and this is probably very unprofessional, hearing about all these other ones, the Tester's liquid cement. So tell me what's different about that. Is that similar to
me? It's almost the same.
Okay,
it's almost the same to me.
But it's slow. It's slow, right?
A little slower, yeah. It also has a fat brush in.
Yeah, it just happens to be what you can get pretty much at any run-of-the-mill hobby place, like even like a Michael's or a Hobby Lobby or something like that.
Yeah. So here's something you didn't know about liquid plastic cement. When you take parts off of what they call a part sprue, you cut up the sprue and you have a spare bottle of this stuff, and you dump the plastic parts into the liquid. And now you have an instant filler as well as a bonder, because it melts the plastic into a thick slurry that you can put on to fill gaps and so on.
Sprue goo is what most people call it.
And you know of this too, do you, David?
I do, but I don't use it. I stick to, I have this stuff from Deluxe Materials. It's a perfect plastic putty that I use for gaps. But I do know about mixing up, cut up sprue gates and mixing glue with it to make a kind of a putty.
I've never even heard of that before.
I haven't either, but another fascinating detail from Ralph.
I know, that's the thing.
He on Wednesday night, he is full of tips and tricks, and a lot of people.
And now, Ralph, you're a prolific plastic modeler.
Yes.
Prolific. If nobody's seen, what's your Facebook page called?
Weathering a Touch of Yesterday.
Yeah. If anybody wants to see fantastic, what I consider to be, I got to be honest with you, Ralph, between you and Scott Lister, I think it's kind of like a tie. But between you two guys, I don't think I've ever met anybody that's as prolific. I'd say you're slightly more artistic than Scott, but Scott is better at building stick-by-stick models. So the two of you guys are like, you're two great hockey teams that one hockey team is slightly better offensively and one hockey team slightly better defensively.
Okay.
But that's what I would, because both you guys, like you're modeling. It's just, I mean, you're an artist. You're an artist. Period. End of sentence. How many like, and this is an interesting question that I've never asked you. Like, when did have you been a modeler pretty much since as long as you can remember?
A plastic modeler since I was 13.
Okay. And do you remember what your first interests in plastic modeling were? Was it planes, cars, boats?
It was that I did myself was cars. My uncle was into building model planes, but he built them as static models out of balsa wood. Like not ones that you fly, but these would on a stand or whatever. And I had two of his models that he gave me. And then my cousin came over and just happened to, flying an airplane and crashed it into the door and a wing came off and all that kind of stuff. So nobody was ever allowed in my room after that. So nobody saw what I was doing until I was finished doing what I was doing. So I didn't go to planes until early 70s. I was what's that Big Brother thing that you do? I was mentoring a young kid and I was helping him build model airplanes. And that's when I really got into it. So I gave him a couple of my models like my uncle did for me.
Do you remember in Toronto, they used to have the big car show at the CNE? It was always in the wintertime, but it was in the automotive building.
Yes, I do.
And they used to have a model show. A model show. And my friend from high school, long after we had our driver's licenses, I guess we were probably both 18, 19, 20, something like that. He won that contest one year.
So did I.
Did you really?
I had pickup trucks on a stand, fancy stand, the whole bit. Like it was a showroom.
Right. And you won. What did you remember what you won?
I won a $50 gift certificate.
Because my buddy won a mini bike. This would be like 1974, 75, 73 in there. And he won
I did it in the 60s.
Okay. So they upped the prize because he won a mini bike.
Yep.
He won a mini bike, and I've told the story before, and we took it out into the parking lot, and I had a pickup truck, and we were going to load it in the back of my pickup truck, but we decided we'd give one spin around the parking lot first. I mean, they just gave it to him right there. And I almost crashed into a car. Yeah.
A parked car?
Oh, yeah, in the parking lot. Yeah, because I had the thing, pretty quick. I knew nothing about riding motorcycles, so I just, juiced the throttle, and the thing went out from under me, and I'm running along behind it, trying to get it to stop. So, Roger, we didn't ask you what your go-to glue was.
Oh, well, again, I'm nowhere near as sophisticated as any of you guys, but like the Tester's liquid cement. In fact, I'm known to use the goopy stuff in the tube if I've got like some surface that
the stringy stuff.
Yeah,
I've used that too. I have used that too.
If I really need something to hold, I'll and I don't care. Like, like what I don't know, like gluing. I'm trying to think of an example of where I would use it, but where like the liquid cement just isn't cutting it, I'll just use that, and that will always, solve the problem. But I have to make a plug for this stuff, and I can't remember where I heard it from. It might have been one of the dudes' shows. But this stuff from Plastruck called Bondine, and the thing is that it was recommended because I like to paint things as much as I can, paint things before I put it together. And this stuff will cut through the paint and give you a great, like you're not having to sand off your paint and It works great, and it also doesn't evaporate as quickly as just the regular Plastruct stuff for some reason. But yeah, Bondine, I use that a lot when I'm making structures where I've painted it and then I'm going to do a final assembly.
Do you know anything? Do you know anything about Bondine, Ralph?
Yeah, I do. It's similar to Plastrut's plastic weld. Mm-hmm. They all contain the active chemical of methylethyl ketone text. So in short terms, it's MEK. Mm-hmm. And that stuff will definitely melt through the plastic. So it's very quick acting and it's strong.
And so you don't, if somebody was trying to decide between the Tamiya glue and this Plastruct weld stuff, would you say there's not much difference, or it's like a preference, or?
There is a difference, but it comes down to personal preference.
Okay. Because it says here the Plastruct weld is the leading general purpose solvent cement for fast permanent bonding of most dissimilar plastics, immediately tacky, sets in minutes, permanently blondes ABS to butyrate and styrene. And But would you not use it? Like, okay, so if somebody's putting together a 1/24 scale plastic model, would they just use that Tamiya stuff that you're talking about?
You'll find most of the military guys will use the Tamiya stuff. I started using it because I started working in a hobby shop, just like David. I was using testers before that. I couldn't get the Plastrut just because it wasn't available where I was.
So can you explain to me what the difference is between Plastruct weld and the Bondine? Like, I know what Roger just said there, but so
chemical formulations, that's all it is. It's basically the same glue. One has more of one chemical than the other.
And what's interesting to me is that I'll get a new bottle of Plastruct, just the plain Plastruct stuff, and I'll go to use it, and half of it's evaporated. And I screw the lid on tight, but the Bondine doesn't do that. It doesn't evaporate nearly as quickly.
Doesn't have as much MEK in it. There's another one called Ambroid Pro Weld, and it basically does the same plastics as the Plastrut.
So why does the Bondine eat through the paint so effectively, whereas like the regular tester's cement doesn't?
It's the MEK.
Less or more?
More.
But you're saying there's more MEK in the regular Plastruct.
Yep. I had a brand new bottle of Plastrut Pro Weld, and it was 6 months old, and it went from a full bottle down to a quarter of a bottle without even opening it. Mm-hmm. So I complained. I called up the manufacturer and I complained, and they sent me another bottle. And they told me to put it in a Ziploc bag when you're not using it. It helps stop the evaporation. There's no stopping it, even though it has the heck's the name of the plastic they use as a gasket in the lid. I forget now, but it doesn't help. It evaporates right through, just like lacquer thinner does.
And for all of you wondering what that noise is in the background, that's our Scott Lister imitator, a.k.a. David Lund.
Is it me?
I'm almost positive it's you, because I think you're the only one working on stuff.
No, I put it off to the side.
Oh, did you? Really?
I'm being respectful.
Well, it's not Ralph, and it's not me. Are you doing?
You sure it's not the hockey game?
I don't hear anything. I turned the hockey game volume right off.
Well, anyways, it's only barely in the background. Is that you, Marcus? Are you working on something?
No, I'm not.
All right. Well, when we hear this podcast, you guys can listen to it, and we'll try to figure it out.
I heard a little clicking around.
Yeah.
Reminiscent of the Table Master.
Yeah, exactly.
We're being spied on.
Yeah. So am I to take from this, like, testers, is it basically an inferior product or something, and that's why people generally don't use it? Like, I know Marcus said he uses it, but it seems like everybody that's a serious modeler rarely turns to testers. Does that seem accurate, or am I making that up in my head?
I think it's a combination of both. Testers used to dominate the market with both the tube glue and the liquid glue. The liquid glue was always harder to find initially. And then a whole bunch of different people started making liquid glues. Humbrol makes one. David mentioned Deluxe Materials. They also make one. I forget there's a German one as well. And they all come with the needle point. Revell has one as well.
Is that what you were going to say, David? Was it Revell?
No, I was going to say Faller, the plastic building manufacturer in Germany. They make their own glue as well.
Yeah.
Well, I think, like Marcus said, the fact is you can get the tester stuff almost anywhere. You can get it at Michael's.
The thing is, Testers is limiting or cutting out a lot of their product line. Dull coat is getting harder and harder to get.
I've noticed that too. You used to be able to go to someplace like Michael's or Hobby Lobby or even Walmart and find the liquid glue or even those little mini bottles of paint.
Yep.
And it's
Model Master paint is gone right off the market.
Yeah.
I wonder why that is. I guess
because Rust-Oleum bought Testers.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And of course, they're getting rid of a lot of the product line because it doesn't fit in with the Rust-Oleum brand.
Which leads me to the next thing I wanted to talk to you about was paints.
Mm-hmm.
Then the reason I started wanting to talk to you about that is because it wasn't that long ago. Well, we were talking to the guy that paints, does wargaming. What was his Squiggy or something? Mr. Sticky or something. I forget what his name was or what he referred to himself as. And he was using something called Army Painter.
Yeah.
And I never even heard of that. And I know that you're a big fan of Vallejo paints. Is that correct?
No, Tamiya.
Well,
I do have Vallejo.
Okay.
And I have a couple of Army Painter, but I stick with my Tamiya because I can blend whatever color I want and I can thin it with alcohol or lacquer thinner or acetone or the thinner that comes with it. And then, if in doubt, always use the thinner that the manufacturer recommends.
And is Tamiya a lacquer or acrylic?
It's an acrylic lacquer. It originally came out as a lacquer, but because of environmental regulations coming into North America, they had to change the formulation. All they did was change the thinner that they use. So it's no longer lacquer thinner. They were using, it's a combination of glycerin and, I forget the chemicals now. Anyway, it's not a lacquer anymore. Although if you put lacquer thinner in it, it is a lacquer, but it's an acrylic lacquer. So it's an acrylic paint. It can be thinned with water.
This sounds very complicated. Is it complicated to use?
No.
Okay.
Like most of the model paints, except for some of the Vallejo paints or the a.k.a. next generation, they're very difficult to brush on because they're a little bit thinner. If you use an airbrush, they flow on beautifully, and David could probably attest to that because he does military modeling.
I follow this guy on YouTube I think it's called HPI Guys. He's a prolific car modeler. I think it's HPI Guys. And he does a lot of brush painting. Yeah, HPI Guys Workshop. I'm not sure what that stands for. But he puts out a ton of videos. And he does a lot of brush painting. And, you don't do that much brush painting, do you?
Not anymore.
Yeah,
I used to, but once the testers once they got rid of their paint line, it just wasn't there. So Tamiya was my go-to after that.
okay. Well, I'm just looking at the HPI guys' YouTube channel, and they now have a whole. I'm going to make a noise here. I'm going to have to hit. They have a whole series of Smokey and the Bandit figures.
Oh yeah, I like it.
Now that's getting into another kind of painting again.
Yes, I want to talk
painting figures.
Yeah, I want to talk about that because actually, I feel like painting figures would be a very relaxing thing to do.
It is, but you got to watch an awful lot of videos or have somebody right there with you to tell you what you're doing wrong or what you want to do it right. Because I mean, yeah, you can paint figures and they can look like cartoons, or you can paint figures and have them look realistic. It takes a lot of practice.
Before we get away from paints, what's that paint that you've talked about before? And it's a Spanish guy or something.
Oh, Megamo?
Yeah. That's a paint, isn't it?
He has all kinds of things. It's basically a paint, yes. He has stains, he has filters, he has washes, and now he has a paint line. He's come out with railroad colors.
So how do you sort through all these paints and decide which one you're going to use? Is it just simply a case of you've been using Tamiya and you don't want to get away from what you know?
No, I try them. I try as much as I want, but I have later we can put the camera on. I can show you my paint rack. I don't have any more room for any more paints.
There's always.
I have the Valleos. I have the Tamiyas.
There's always room for more paint.
Yeah, and then it dries out.
Yeah, that's true. I got a whole giant.
Take flow quill paints, for instance. Do you remember those?
Yes, I still have a bunch of those.
Right. Make sure they haven't gone solid.
Yeah. All right. Well, I got some there. One of the best tips I ever heard, and you probably know of this, is when you've opened up a bottle of paint and you're actively modeling, like you're going to go back to it in a month or 2 months or whatever, you're actively modeling, is to use cellophane. Put cellophane on the top. Yeah.
Saran wrap.
Yeah. And then put the top and then screw the top back on to keep it fresh.
Yeah. And then store it upside down.
That part I didn't know.
That's a new one.
It helps seal the leaks where the air is.
That makes sense.
And then keep everything wet, I guess, right?
And so I want to get back to because I don't want to forget this part. So Army Painter, have you tried any of this Army Painter stuff? It seems like everybody and his brother is coming out with their own paints.
Yeah.
And
then you have the war gamers as well. They have Citadel paints. I'm not a fan of Citadel paints except for one color, Shade Null Oil. It's called. It basically puts in shadows. But Army Painter, Vallejo paints, a.k.a. paints, ammo paints, they're basically all acrylics, but not all acrylics are created equal. Tamiya is also the acrylic. So Tamiya you can thin with a multitude of liquids. Vallejo, Megamo, Army Painter, either you use the thinner they provide or you use water. Don't use anything else. And I say that from experience. I did an RDC, got it all nice stainless steel finish on it, and I wanted to do it in CN pre-1954 with the curved yellow and green on the front. And I went to mix the color in my airbrush, which I normally do with Tamiya and Alclad. So I put it, and I went and put some alcohol in with the paint, And I went to spray it, nothing happened. And I'm looking at it. And I'm turning the brush a little bit, and the level is not going with the brush. It's staying with where it was in the cup. I eventually turned it upside down. Nothing came out. It turned everything in the cup to a jello because I used the wrong thinner.
So
4 hours to clean it out.
So let me ask you a question. If you're new to airbrushing and you want to try airbrushing, but you want to make it as simple on yourself as possible, what are the most basic? Would you get Tamiya and their actual thinner and go that route? Would that be the safest thing for a beginner to do?
Yes, their thinner is designated as A20A, and it's a combination of different chemicals, but it's not a strong chemical. It's not going to, if you had it on your hand and you had sensitive skin, it's not going to affect your hands. It's that mild. You could use water, but I don't recommend it with Tamiya paints because water will make the paint particles drop out of suspension.
So this is acrylic we're talking about now.
Yeah, the acrylic. Okay. Tamiya.
Right. Is that because you were talking earlier that somehow you can turn it into a lacquer, or they got a lacquer thinner or something?
Use lacquer thinner.
I'm very confused about that. Is anybody else confused? No, I'm the only confused one. Well, yeah, but you can put lacquer thinner into an acrylic?
Yeah.
Yep.
You know the paint on your car? In this, up until I guess beginning of the 70s, it was a true lacquer. And then they came out with an acrylic finish, which is called acrylic lacquer. It's not as volatile as the old one. The old one you used to be able to blend just by hitting it with thinner.
So how much? What is the 1-to-1? Like, what is the of Tamiya paint and the thinner? Like, how much thinner would you put in? I don't know.
My best go-to, if you want good coverage, I always thin my paints more than they should be because it's easier to add a second coat or a third coat than it is to put on the second coat and it's too much. So I always knock mine down to 50-50 or a 1-to-1.
Okay, 50-50.
But they recommend, and David probably heard this as well, it's a 60-40, 60 paint, 40 thinner.
As if you could ever figure that out anyways.
Well, you count it by drops.
Yeah, I got a fun story about that.
Okay.
Go for it.
There was a Hasegawa kit that I was building, and it had its own.
Hang on. Custom. Can I ask you a question about that? Is that Steve Hasegawa?
No, it's Lionel Hasegawa. But they had a custom gray color for this plane, and it gave two colors that you could use, and it was like a 60-40 ratio. So I had to get enough paint for to cover the whole thing for my airbrush. So I sat there and I just counted out 60 drops of one and 40 drops of the other and mixed it together and came out great. But yeah, it took a little bit of time and it was kind of silly to do it, but it worked out. So
after a while, it becomes second nature. You know how much it is, and it's not a hard fast rule. As long as the ratio is close, it's going to work.
And it sounds.
And then I would just jump in and say with mixing for an airbrush, the rule of thumb that I was always taught was the consistency of 2% milk.
Exactly.
And it sounds like a safest thing to do if you're starting out is to mix it 50-50, and you're not going to get yourself in trouble doing that.
Right.
And then once you get comfortable with that, then you could work your way to 60-40.
And then another trick that you can do is when you drop your paint into the paint cup for your airbrush, and then you start adding some thinner, you're going to have to mix it anyway to kind of get it mixed basically, and then you can take whatever thing you're using to mix it, whether it's like a coffee stir or I have some metal stainless steel mixers from Tamiya and you can kind of just lift that up and then set it to the side of the paint cup. You can kind of watch how
what airbrush are you using?
Using a Pache Talon, and then I also have the VL.
Okay.
But you can kind of just put it on the side of the paint cup, and you can kind of see how it's going to flow down with gravity, if it's too thin or if it's too thick. So that's another little trick.
So the safe way to do that trick is to put your thinner in first. The thinner then goes down into the channel where the needle is instead of solid paint, which doesn't mix. And then when you spray it, you spray off the thinner, and the next thing that comes out is your mixed paint. And I think you can do it on the Talon. I can't remember. You can block the tip of the brush to make the air go backwards into the cup.
Yes.
And you can use the bubbles to mix your paint.
Yes.
I was just looking for a company called Minuteman Models, and he has paint.
I think he's no longer doing it.
Oh yeah, he got out of the paint?
I think so. I'm not sure.
Because the other day I stumbled onto a company called MCW, and they make automotive paints. And they make like just about every color of automotive paint you can possibly imagine. Like just here's a 7980 Ford 76 light pine lacquer. Man, Ford had some ugly colors.
Yeah, because Minuteman Models bought the Scale Coat line.
Scale Coat.
Right, yeah.
Which was a lacquer.
So yes. They finally gave up on that because lacquers got kind of outlawed. Is that basically it?
Yes, and right now in Canada, we can't buy a lacquer thinner anymore from the hobby shop.
Huh. So you have to import it across the border. Mm-hmm. But that goes back to, I've talked about it before on the show, and I think the last time I talked about it was on Viewer Mail 133, is that Lauren James and I and Mike Hauk were thinking of buying a 14-foot aluminum boat and smuggling train stuff back and forth across Lake Erie from Point Pelee.
Solid plan.
Yeah.
I think it's the 14-foot aluminum boat that's going to sell it.
As long as you put it on TikTok.
Yeah, there you go. We'll end up getting arrested by the feds.
But it'll be on TikTok.
TikTok
hugely,
stars,
hugely entertaining.
Or you could do it on the Wednesday night chat and just do it live. We can watch you.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Last thing I want to talk about, because we're running out of network time, is we just briefly touched there on painting figures. So can you give us, guys, I'm thinking I wouldn't mind trying that. So first off, do you know where the best place to buy figures is? Like unpainted figures?
I bought a lot of my figures off of eBay.
Okay.
Like, what size figures are you looking for?
I kind of like a fairly good size, like, 1/24 scale.
1/24 scale?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get them off of eBay, and you can get science fiction, you can get auto mechanics, that sort of thing.
So what is the trick? What is the secret to painting figures? Like you said, you can make them look cartoonish, or you can make them look realistic. And there are guys, that's another whole hobby. I stumbled across once. There's a whole hobby of figure painting. There's actually even an association for it, and I think they have a yearly convention and everything.
Yep.
Which seems like a really neat hobby to me. And so what is the trick to painting figures?
Well, you have to decide, am I going to use acrylics or am I going to use oil paints? So oil paints are the better choice, like tube oil paints.
Tube oil paints. Oh, okay.
Artist oil paints.
Okay.
They blend the easiest. You can use acrylics, and then it's a matter of layers. It's all layers. And not even painting like when I do the weathering and so on, it's all layers and how you apply the layers.
Right. Now, this is another whole show again we'll have to come back to. So if you're, say, okay, I just saw this video about you can buy Smokey and the Bandit figures. So I go buy myself a pack of Smokey and the Bandit figures, and they're 1/24 scale, and you're saying paint them with oil paints. What preparation do you have to do? They seem like they're 3D printed. There's some sort of resin kit, is what I can tell. And like what would the preparation be before you started applying paint?
A good primer.
So you'd prime the whole,
first off.
You'd prime the whole figure?
Yeah.
Probably gray primer?
Well, that's a whole other issue again. You have different schools of thought. I do my rock work on my layout the same way. I go dark first and build up to light. So dark to light. So if you paint it black and then do your colors coming up in layers, you get the shadows in the crevices because of the black background.
And is there such a thing as a black primer?
Yeah, there is.
And which black primer do you use?
Well, the one that I'm promoting these days, I got rid of all my primers working at the hobby shop after I found or was introduced to Stynylrez. It's made by Badger.
You see now?
It's a water-based thinner or primer.
How do you spell that?
That's a new one for me.
How do you spell that?
Stynylrez. Z for the Americans.
And all I had to put in was Stynyl, and then it came up Stynylrez primer.
Stynylrez, and I believe there's about 12 different colors.
Wow, and you've never heard of that either,
no.
David? Look, okay. See, you thought this was going to be a complete waste of your time, and look at that. We get to the golden hour right at the end, and we're hitting the.
Yeah.
So now the Stynylrez it's a whole different way of spraying with an airbrush because you have to. I normally spray between 12 and 15 psi. When you do Stynylrez, you have to up it to 20 to 25, and do not thin it. It's a thicker paint, and you need the extra air pressure to push it through. And you'd be surprised, like when it's going on, you're going, oh shit, what have I done now? Pardon my French. And then you let it dry, and when you come back to it, it's got a perfect finish on it.
So I've gone to badgerairbrush.com, and then I put in, and then it comes up Stynylrez, STYNYLRES.ASP. But you just go to Badger.
REZ. Yeah, or Z for the Americans.
Yeah, there you go. And there's like, it looks like there's like 18 different colors of Stynylrez.
Call me a liar for 6. Okay.
It's called Stynylrez water-based acrylic polyurethane easy app surface primer. And it says the most accomplished model artisan follows a meticulous process. They know the surface preparation and priming is paramount. See, the most accomplished artisan. See, that's exactly what I said about you. You're an accomplished artisan. And then there's like all these colors. So you primarily use black.
I have black, gray, terracotta, and white. And then it goes back to learning colors in art school. What base color you need for a specific color. And like so, you would not put yellow paint on a black primer.
Okay, and so am I to understand that what you've said is that once you put this primer on, you go and you use artist like tube paints?
Yep.
Okay.
And I'd like to add that if you are painting and you happen to have a hot dog near you, you can use the pale mustard color.
There you go.
That was an attempt at humor, right?
It was an attempt, yeah.
I chuckled.
There you go.
Send in your emails if you liked it or not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, send in your emails if you want David to try more humor. A simple yes or no for your... Yeah, we want David to try more humor. What do you think about all this, Roger? Because you're not an airbrush guy, are you?
No, Ralph's been after me for ever since I've been on the Wednesday chat.
Not yet.
Yeah.
And maybe one day. The thing is, I've kind of built enough models to fill every square inch of my layout, so I'm not really doing a lot of building these days.
Well, and the secret to that is to take some of those models off and start again.
Yeah, I know.
Or recently we talked to a guy called Wally Swatley, who we're going to have on again, because I discovered after we talked to him that he sang the national anthem at a Chicago Bears game. And he never told us. It's like, excuse me, Wally, but that's kind of an important detail about your life that you might want to fill us in on.
That's usually what you lead off with.
Yeah, exactly. Have you ever sung? Exactly. Have you ever sung the That would be a great Kelly
question. Here we go.
Have you ever sung the national anthem at a professional sporting event? And then if the guy says yes, you go A, Chicago Bears, B, Nashville Predators, or C, the Florida Marlins.
And which national anthem was it?
Yeah, and which national anthem was it? There you go. Yeah, that's a dead giveaway. Well, it could be baseball or hockey, I guess. Man, I find all this stuff fascinating. Am I ever glad we had this discussion? Because I really want to try painting figures. What did you think about this discussion, Marcus?
I'm continuing to learn more and maybe getting a little more exposed to different glues, and I would be interested to try the little trick that Ralph mentioned about melting the plastic sprues to help with sealing and filling. So
that comes in handy when you put plastic buildings together.
That's what I was thinking, because you always have those gaps that you can't. No
matter how much you file and sand, it's
But I guess you'd have to be really careful. But I mean, which side of the? I mean, you'd almost want to try to fill the gap from the back side of the. But
if it's the same color as the plastic and you haven't painted it, you can do it from the front side and then just file in the grooves. If it's brickwork, file in the grooves.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Cool. We should make videos of Ralph building stuff. So when was the last?
I'm gonna post a picture to the fans page that everybody can see of my latest project. I think some of the guys on Wednesday nights have seen it.
What are you building?
It's my abandoned Batmobile.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah.
How'd you get that idea?
Same way I got my garbage junkyard Volkswagen. Remember that one?
Yeah, that was beautiful. That was unbelievable. You know, something you should try. You'd be fantastic at it. Is this guy, Wally Swatley, and there's other people doing it. They build these really small, and they use ON30 track and cars and locomotives, and they build these, like 2 foot by 4 foot railroads that are kind of a Western theme, primarily using foam, and they got all these crazy structures and stuff. We gotta get on and interview these guys. There's one guy. Let me see if I can find the website off the top of my head. Don't anybody tell me. Yes, Thunder Mesa Studio.
Oh, I know that guy.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. Very, very much like in the old Malcolm Furlow way.
Was that the guy that was carving figures out of foam?
Yeah, that guy.
Jeez.
Roger, have you ever heard of Malcolm Furlow?
I've heard the name, but I can't say I'm super familiar with the carving figures out of foam.
Well, no.
His layout was the kind of layout you didn't want to lean on.
Yes. Yeah, it was.
It would fall apart.
Yes.
Okay.
So Malcolm Furlow, he ended up becoming a fairly well-known Western artist. But in the 80s, he was Mr. Model Railroader, and he built these fantastic fantasy-type layouts that were Western-themed, and they were fabulous, and people just drooled over them. And he built this one layout for Model Railroader that, not that I know this for a fact or anybody ever told me or I ever saw it in person, but it was kind of like a L-shaped standalone layout that you didn't really you couldn't really, touch it or anything, or else it would end up on the floor. And it didn't necessarily run.
Yeah, it sounds like my layout, except not very attractive.
Well, your layout's great. Your layout is typical of
very nice layout.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very nice. That's very nice.
Don't say that. It's a great layout. Your layout is exactly what a new model railroader could aspire to, right? Because you started out as a fresh modeler. Like when did you discover the hobby?
It was around 2019, I think.
Yeah. So how old were you at that time?
Oh, there was going to be no math. They told me there would be no math. I don't know. It was 5 years ago, so
right,
50 something. Yeah.
Okay. Because
I was already an old guy when I got into this.
Right. You were mid to late 50s.
Yeah, something like that.
Right. You already lost your memory and you can't even remember how old you were.
Yeah, and I needed a hobby, so I figured.
So
and it's all the dude's fault, really.
Yeah, and it's the dude's fault you discovered. But your layout is a classic example of what somebody can do as a first timer. Like don't sell yourself short. You've done a great job with your layout. I'm very impressed with your layout.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. The thing is, I have commitment issues, so nothing is glued down. I can pick it up and move things around at will, and I do. So
I've had commitment issues my whole life.
yeah, me too. But I'm happily married, so that's good.
Well, there you go.
Marcus, do you want to chime in?
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know what Paul Newman said? He was married 55 years to, who was it, Joanne Woodward or somebody?
Yeah.
And he said, people, they get divorced. And he said, they'd had trouble in their marriage. And he says, it's not something you throw away. It's something you work through. You don't just throw people, you don't sort of toss people aside like they were yesterday's lunch. And I always thought that was kind of cool. And I was watching a Paul Newman movie the other night called Absence of Malice from the early 80s. And I was thinking, man, we've come a long ways from dial phones and it's like all that stuff. Man, this was a good podcast. I learned a ton of stuff, and we learned about. So I'm actually going to try to paint a figure, and I'm gonna follow. First thing I'm going to do is buy Stynylrez primer, and I'll buy black, gray, and red brown. How about that?
Okay.
I have a
not pale mustard.
Well, no, I have an affinity for Tuscan red for some reason or other.
There you go.
And so, when you paint a figure and you use this primer, you airbrush the figure, right, with the primer. Well, now somebody is swashing around in the liquid.
Somebody's painting.
I was shaking it, so I was going to show you the color, but then
okay. So then you airbrush the primer on.
Yep.
And then from that point, you start using acrylic or lac. What kind of paint is in the tube? Artist paint, oil based.
You can actually use acrylics and oils. You can use acrylics to put the base colors down for the body and the clothes. And then you do all your fine detail with the oils.
All right, we're gonna have to come back to this subject because, really, you can do like
combination, yeah.
Really, eh? And why would you do it that way? Like, why wouldn't you just use all oil paint?
It's a lot longer.
It takes forever to dry.
It does.
Okay, so acrylic dries faster.
So and there's a trick to getting oils ready. You put them on a piece of corrugated cardboard, about a 1/4 inch of color from each tube that you're using, and let the cardboard leach the linseed oil out. You get the linseed oil out of the oils, they dry quicker.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like me at all. I think I better just stick with acrylics.
You'll be sitting there lynching the linseed oil out.
Yeah, yep. Exactly. That does not sound. There's nothing about that sounds like Lionel.
It's actually easy. It's easy.
Didn't Johnny Cash have a song about leaching linseed oil?
Yeah, exactly. Well,
I posted those photographs, by the way.
Okay, cool. I'm going to go look at them right now.
So on the fans page, we were asking questions.
We didn't ask questions. Oh, Jesus. Hang on.
There was one question that came up that I pulled from, and it's not directly related to paints or glues, but liquid for sure. So I'm sure that Ralph has an answer for this. Herman Lund asked about the best products to simulate water for ponds, lakes, streams, or rivers.
Oh, wow. There's so many different varieties. Right now I'm using artist gels, which are acrylic. And if you use the thin gel, you can get it to look like it's a still pond. If you use the thicker gel, you can get it to look like it's rippled. And then if you get the heavy gel, you can actually put waves in it.
And see, I knew he'd have an answer, and a good answer.
The other thing you can do is 2-part resin, which is kind of annoying sometimes because now you get this super glass finish on it, and you have to go back at it with acrylic gels to put some sort of surface on it other than a mirror finish.
Actually, one of the most proudest moments I ever had with my own layout was I was creating a river scene, or somewhere between a creek and a river, and I put down a mix of the Envirotex, and I was looking at it and I'm thinking, well, that doesn't look like anything. So then I threw in some Pullman green. I mixed in some Pullman green with the Envirotex, and man, that came out so cool. It looked like
murky water.
Murky water. Who actually, by coincidence, was shortstop for the Cleveland Indians.
I was waiting for that one.
From 48 to 56. Gold Glover twice.
The good years.
Yeah.
Things are great in 48.
Yeah, the good years are for Murky Waters. His given name, of course, was Steve. But
I remember Steve.
Yeah, Steve Waters. But then it's a whole story about how he got the nickname Murky. We don't want to go down there because it's kind of a personal story. That's it. We got to stop. So David, can you give out our email? Oh no, Marcus, can you give out our email? Because now Marcus is the official mailboy of the AML Nation, and also our most eligible bachelor.
As pronounced last night.
I have big shoes to fill with Bruce, but he's left a lot of good notes, and we're going to make this transition as seamless as possible here. So, but yeah, if you'd like to reach us by email, you can do so by sending us email at modellerslife@gmail.com, and that's modelers with one L, like cyanoacrylate, not two L's, like methyl ethyl ketone.
Wow.
Ooh.
Wow.
You've been working on that for a while, haven't you?
That is
Writing some things down.
Holy mackerel. And if you miss that, if you click on the picture of the moderately agitated, click on the picture of the AML's most eligible bachelor. That's right. Now you click on the picture of the AML's most eligible bachelor, and he's standing there with two inflatable bears.
Is he there yet?
Yeah, take a look. Yeah.
And Fred the Sock.
Does it give stats?
Oh, look at there.
Yeah. And it says, let's eat. We're not sure what that means.
Right.
And then there's Fred the Sock is there.
Fred joined us. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we really have no idea what that picture is of, but if you click on that picture, it takes you directly to the email, and away you go, and all you got to do, takes you to fills in the email address, and all you do is fill in your title and your text, and that's at modellerslife.com. And who was I talking to? I was talking to David Lund before this particular podcast, and I was saying to him, he pointed out something I'd missed on one show, and I said, well, I'm not really very good at this. So if any of this doesn't sound very good, that's because I'm not very good at it. And let's see what else. Oh, yeah. And if you enjoyed this particular podcast and you'd like twice as much podcasting a week, if you go to our Patreon, click on the Patreon link, for just a few cents a day, you can join our Patreon channel. And on that channel is kind of more laid back, a little bit more homey, a little bit more, it's even more interesting than the Monday podcast. And this was a great podcast full of tons of information. And then if you you don't have to apologize for the verbiage. Yeah, you don't have to apologize for the verbiage or nothing. And if you go to the T-shirt level, you get every year you get a T-shirt that's only available to Patreon members, and you're entered into the greatest contest of all time. Hey, dude, where's my shirt? Because the guy in charge of sending out the shirts isn't particularly organized or efficient or anything, and he's busy trying to paint a figure. He's busy trying to paint Smokey and the Bandit figures. Man, this is going to be a mess. Ralph, can you help me? This is what my figure looks like. I think I've covered it all. Have we not?
Well, I'd like to mention that if you do join Patreon, you get to participate in the Wednesday night chat, where it's often just like this. Ralph Renzetti giving you all kinds of pointers on how to model. And Marcus is often there, and David's been there recently, and even the Evel Overlord himself will pop in from time to time.
That's right.
So,
And
once in a while, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to do a show. We're going to do a show about the Wednesday chat because I think we need to explain to people how much fun that is because the people that come quite enjoy themselves. And I would say on an average Wednesday, with people coming and going, we'll see like 40 people will be involved at one time or another. So it's pretty good. Mm-hmm. I think now we've covered everything, which means, Ralph, are you ready?
For?
Well, you'll know when we get to that part. Just say whether or not you're ready.
I guess I am.
You do listen to the podcast, right, Ralph?
Occasionally. He listens occasionally. Okay, so just at the appropriate moment, you'll have to fill in the ending for the podcast. So just here we go. So remember, a Modeler's Life podcast is considered marginally adequate by 6 out of 10
model painters.
Modeler's Life is sponsored by Because I Love Sushi, with 7 convenient locations in the greater Busted Knuckle area.
It's another Lincoln Homer.
Or guys that are trying to paint models.
Well, I said model painters because it covers both male and female.
That's true. Well, Ralph is being what is it when you say you're
appropriate?
Yeah,
inclusive.
He's being inclusive. He's being diversified. And let's not go down. We're off the air now, so now we can go down that road.
Oh, okay. DEI. All right.
DEI.